I was eventually expelled from school. I stole a car, I was arrested. Oh, my poor mother. My skipper said to me, "Can you navigate?" And I said, "Of course I can't navigate." He said, "You think you're playing the part of the girlfriend when you should be the main part." This is a roughy, tufty, grufty ocean sailor. I thought, when's he watching chick flicks? Was I a feminist at the time? I don't even think I was. I am now, obviously, a huge one. Had a lot of fun on that boat. I mean, nearly killed ourselves numerous times. I had this really profound thought: no man will ever let me navigate on a Whitbread round the world race boat. So if no one else was going to let me, I would put the project together and I would choose me as the navigator.
Welcome to the Great Women podcast. Today we're joined by a true trailblazer, a woman who changed the course of sailing history and inspired generations to dream bigger. She first made the headlines in 1989 when she skippered Maiden, the first all-female crew to compete in the Whitbread round the world race. Facing widespread skepticism and constant challenges, she and her crew silenced the doubters, not only completing the grueling 33,000-mile race, but finishing second in their class, the best result for a British boat in 17 years.
She became Sportswoman of the Year, the first woman ever to receive the Yachtsman of the Year trophy, and was awarded an MBE.
This spirit of determination led her to her next great voyage, the Maiden Factor Foundation, which she founded to champion girls' education around the world. Today, Maiden sails again as a symbol of empowerment and equality, raising awareness for the 130 million girls worldwide who are denied the right to learn.
In this conversation, we'll explore the extraordinary highs and lows of her journey, what it took to break into a male-dominated world, and what continues to drive Tracy to create change today. A huge, huge welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
So maybe we can start with your early life. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about your childhood. You seem to have been a bit of a kind of teenage rebel, should we say, left school without many qualifications and headed off to travel. So maybe we should start there.
So the first 10 years of my life were absolutely fantastic. Lived in a beautiful house with two wonderful parents and my lovely brother. And that all came to an end, sadly, when my father died of a heart attack when I was 10 years old. My brother was 8. And our lives changed for, just in drastic ways that we could never have imagined. My mother remarried an awful man who was an alcoholic and an abuser. And he moved us down to Wales and sort of isolated my mother, especially from her friends, because I didn't know any about this at the time, coercive control or any of this that I now know about, but big red flags. My brother stayed in boarding school. I did not get on with my stepfather, and we had some quite extraordinary fights. Of course, now looking back, it's all so obvious with hindsight when you just look back at the trajectory of where it all went wrong. So I became very rebellious. I hated everyone, became quite violent and aggressive. I missed school regularly. The only 2 lessons I turned up to were geography and history. Understanding where I was and where I was going seemed to be. So I guess, my mother would say I fell in with a bad group of people, but actually my friends were all as damaged as I was, and we were all sort of finding our way through these tumultuous teenage years. I was eventually expelled from school. I mean, I almost blame my headmaster for not expelling me sooner. He obviously kept hoping that I might find my feet, and of course I never did. I stole a car, I was arrested. My mother, oh, my poor mother, just didn't know what to do with me. So her suggestion was that I should travel. I think also looking back on it, she maybe wanted to get rid of me out of the way so that she could leave the idiot that she was married to. Actually, just going through some of her papers right now and reading letters from her friends, saying you're in a relationship which is destroying you. Oh. Again, all hindsight. But anyway, so off I went to Greece, backpacking to Greece. Ended up working in a bar, and I would see these beautiful yachts in the harbour, these stunning luxury charter yachts. And of course, it never occurred to me that people like me work on them. I just used to think, these rich people. The guy came in one night and said, "Would you like to be a stewardess on my charter yacht?" I was 17 years old, no hope of anything really, no qualifications, nothing to my name. And I just went, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll give that a go. And it was the best decision I ever made in my life, because I realized within about 4 days that that is what I was going to do with the rest of my life. Not necessarily the stewardessing part, cleaning heads and didn't like that, but and initially it wasn't the ocean really, or the sailing, although it was those things later on. For me, it was the people. I had found my tribe. These were the people that my mother had told me to go and search for, and here they were, all these like-minded people, all with interesting stories of how we all got to where we were, sort of thrown together. But for the first time in my life, I felt as if I was on the inside looking out instead of on the outside looking in.
That's just amazing. When was it that you realized that actually you didn't want to be a stewardess? I think you were later a cook. When did you realize that you actually wanted to be steering this ship or navigating?
Well, I didn't actually. I've been so lucky in my life. Seriously, there are some twists and turns that could have gone the other way. But I had a lot of really amazing skippers, all men, because of course there were no female skippers at that time. But every single one of them saw something in me which I didn't see in myself. And this is a real part of what we do now, mentoring. This is when I learned how powerful mentoring is. Not that they were just my skippers and they were teaching me the physical side of what I was doing. So that first skipper said to me, why are you just a stewardess? You could be so much more. Why don't you be a cook? And I said, I can't cook. And he said, it's more money. I went, right, okay, I'll learn how to cook. So I, pretended I was a cook and moved on to my next job. And then my second transatlantic, my skipper said to me, can you navigate? And I said, of course I can't navigate. I don't think I went to maths once, in the whole time I was in school. He said, well, what happens if, something happens to me? And I said, well, there's two other guys on the boat. He said, they can't navigate. So I went, he said, well, I said, well, I'll push those button things there and it'll tell me where I am. And he said the most profound thing to me I think anyone's ever said to me in my life. He said, why are you being a bystander in your own life? He said, you think you're playing the part of the girlfriend when you should be the main part. I said, this is a roughy tufty, grufty ocean sailor. I thought, when's he watching chick flicks? Anyway, had a very feminine side. And I thought, yeah, why am I? Why don't I know how to do these things? And he said, I will teach you to navigate in 2 days. And he did. And it was like someone had bestowed this gift upon me that with a sextant, a paper chart, pencil, and a book of tables, I could find out wherever I was in the world. And that magic, that excitement of navigation has never left me 45 years later.
It's incredible to think that you learned, something so skillful in 2 days. And it's kind of ironic that the people that were elevating you were men and helping you kind of progress in life. And then you had such a kind of, I suppose, such a bad experience later on in a way with misogyny, etc., when you decided, actually, no, I am going to go out there and put myself out there and I can skipper this boat. And how did you get there, Tracy?
So I think the reason that I didn't come across misogyny in the cruising world, the charter world, is because looking back on it, we were all in our place. You have the male skipper, the female cook, mum and dad, and then you have the male deckhand and the female stewardess, the kids. And it's this weird sort of, nuclear family. So you don't notice that I didn't notice that I was in the galley or cleaning or, whatever, because I was learning to sail and I was up on deck as well. It was only when I got into the racing world that I realized, oh, okay, so this is misogyny. This is sexism. I don't really know if we called it that at the time, but this was, when I first raced around the world in 85, 86, I became the first girl to race on an ocean racing maxi. And the ocean racing maxis were the big boy boats, they were the big money, the big boy boats. And there were 3 other girls on the 85, 86 race. So they were on sort of what I would call in a cruising class. They'll probably kill me for that. But, I wanted to be on something really serious. I knew I could only be a cook. I was not quite ready to buck that trend yet, because I knew I would get onto this. If I could get onto this boat, I would learn. So I got on this boat, Atlantic Privateer, with 17 of the roughest sailors you've ever met in your life. either as soon as we pushed off, I thought, oh, I think I may have made a big mistake here. They did
Weren't they
not
known as the pirates?
They were known as the pirates, and we were the worst behaved crew in the entire race. And the 85-86 race was really the last of its kind, because this was when the journalists used to almost be part of what was going on. There weren't any really big sponsors, so there was no one sort of watching us. so we kind of got away with quite a lot. But, they could have made my life a misery the whole way around. As I say, they did not want to be the only professional racing team with a girl on the boat. And I understand that now. At the time, I thought, how dare you? Looking back on it, of course they didn't want a girl on the boat. But, in the end, we won the leg, the first leg that I was on, we won it. Closest finish in a Whitbread ever. So I kind of went from being that bloody woman to, oh, it's our lucky charm. And, one by one, they all came round. And by the end of the race, they were all hugely supportive. And actually, when we were coming to the end of the race, and I thought, I really want to do this again, but I can't cook. I cannot cook for men. I mean, they're smelly, they're noisy. I mean, as much as I liked them in the end. And I just thought, I had this really profound thought. It was, no man will ever let me navigate on a Whitbread round the world race boat, probably in my lifetime. And I was 21 at the time. And I just thought, I need to do something about this. So anyway, I suggested initially to the guys on privateer, I said, what would you think if I put an all-female crew together? And I didn't get the raucous laughter that I was kind of expecting. And Stanbridge, one of my big mates on the boat, he said, if anyone was to do it, I get the feeling that I think you could, but I think it's going to be hard. Which of course was echoed by my mother when I went home, and she sort of went, sorry, you want to do what now? Oh, I want to change the world. She's like, oh, right, okay. And of course she helped me every step of the way. But that's how Maiden was born, not as this big feminist statement. Was I a feminist at the time? I don't even think I was. I am now, obviously, huge one. But at the time it was about me. It was totally selfish. I wanted to navigate on a boat. So if no one else was going to let me, I would put the project together and I would choose me as the navigator.
Very wise, Tracy, very wise.
So sort of, Tracy, practically speaking, like from idea to actually starting the race, like what was the time frame and how did that work?
We knew we had 3 years, so it's 4 years between the starts of each race, and the race is 9 months, so we had just over 3 years. I had no idea what I was doing, although that's not actually true, because I didn't know what I knew. I didn't know how much I had assimilated all this information on the race. So of course, I'd done the budgeting and the cooking, I'd found the crew houses, I'd looked after the crew on land. So actually I knew a lot more about this. I could never have done Maiden if I hadn't done this race with these guys, in particular these guys, because they were so professional. So all this sort of rubbed off on me. So as I got to each stage, I thought, oh, I know this. I know how to do this. So that was a bit of a surprise. The first person who joined Maiden was Howard Gibbons, who became my project manager. Jack of all trades, Jack the lad. Probably you wouldn't have put us together if I'm honest. But Maiden attracted the most extraordinary people. She was like a magnet. And we didn't, the crew was all female, but we had guys on the shore team, 3 guys and 3 girls. And we drew from this amazing group of people, as I say, gravitated towards us, and people came and went and helped and, went on to do then their own thing. But we did start down the pub on the back of a beer mat, sort of, well, how much do you think we need? I don't know, 2.5 million? Do you think that's right? About 2.5 million? So yeah,
it was 2.5 million in 1989 was an awful lot of money.
Oh, it was a lot of money. I mean, it's a lot of money now, but then it was huge. I mean, it was almost insurmountable. So like 10 million pounds now, but that's what you need. So we wrote to hundreds of companies, had some hysterical replies back. One of my favorites was, The thought of 12 of my wife sailing around the world fills me with horror. Wow. Lucky wife, I thought. He sounds like a keeper. But anyway, in the end, we were sponsored by Royal Jordanian Airlines because I'd met King Hussein when I was stewardessing on charter yachts, and we'd stayed friends through the years. He was one of the most extraordinary humans I have ever met in my life, and we could really do with him right now. You know, his incredible wisdom and diplomacy and courage and his foresight. I mean, this is 37, 38 years ago. And Jordan was the first country to sponsor a sporting team. I mean, now, you know, you have Emirates and you have, you know, they were the first. And at the time, you know, women had the vote in Jordan. They went to school, university, they drove cars, they were in government. They were so far ahead of everyone else. And we sailed around the world with the messages of peace and equality, which is pretty cool. And in the end, you know, we'd found a secondhand boat. I'd remortgaged my house. We'd bought the boat. We remortgaged the boat to pay for the refit. My bank manager was having a complete nervous breakdown. I mean, it makes me laugh when I look back and see, you know, how we got through this, but the determination. Oh, we were so determined. You know, all like when I would wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning in a cold sweat going, oh, what am I doing? Why do I think I can do this? I would think, if we fail, the next woman that comes along is not only going to have all of this stuff that we're dealing with, they're going to have our failure, you know, hanging around their neck like an albatross. We have got to do, there is no choice. We have to do this. Certainly that's what kept us going during that 3 years until we got to the start line with our beautiful Maiden and an extraordinary all-female crew.
Can I just ask a quick question about the crew? Did you have a lot of people wanting to be on it? And was there a sort of a rigorous interviewing or sort of practical process of deciding who was going to be on it with you?
Well, that we had nearly 500 applications from all over the world. We realized we couldn't find 12 women in the UK who could do this, that had the experience or the knowledge, or so we very early on thought this is going to be an international crew, British boat, international crew. And in the end, we had 9 nationalities on the boat out of 12 of us. Yeah. But that, again, you know, what started out as a possible disadvantage became a huge advantage. All this knowledge and expertise from all over the world, all these different ways of doing things, and you know, all these amazing women, the incredible input. You know, I would love to tell you that we did some intelligent interview process. We did not. It was a kind of a mix and match. So we're looking for an engineer, sailmaker, electrician, doctor, all of these jobs. That's possibly more important than how well they could sail, because you can't teach someone to be a doctor, but we can teach the doctor how to sail.
And the practicalities of living in such a confined space. I know a lot of the nasty male journalists kind of said, oh, they're all going to fall out and, you know, it's never going to work, etc. But can you talk about the sort of day to day? I just can't imagine 12 of you in such a confined space. How did it work?
Well, if you think, a lot of us had been together for almost 2 years by the time we crossed the start line, and we'd all, well, I didn't live in the crew house, not that mad. We had a crew house that everyone was living in. So they already kind of knew their little idiosyncrasies, you know, and who needed to be told to pick up your socks and, you know, all these other things. The first race we actually did, it's not in the film, so no one really remembers it. But the first race we did was a transatlantic against 11 other Whitbread boats, and we won it by a long way. We had the only fallouts we ever had on the boat, we had on that transatlantic. And that's when I realized, oh, a couple of people here are not going to work. One of them I sacked way too close to the start line, which was totally my fault, not her fault at all. We're now best of friends. She's now running Maiden today. So by the time we crossed the start line, we were battle hardened. We were, I would say, in the top 3 most prepared crew, boat, ready to go. So all this thing of, you know, it was like the journalists would throw out, oh, well, you're not strong enough, or you're not talented enough, or you don't have enough stamina. And the final thing, when we ticked all those boxes, was women don't get on. And I remember thinking at the time, what is this thing that women don't get on? What did men come up with that because they're scared if we get on? You know, it's just this weird thing. And every port for the entire race, we would get in, and they'd go, "Oh, you're still getting along then, are you? Or how many arguments?" And we're like, "Yes, we are still getting along, and no, there are no arguments. Would you like us to talk about the tactics that we used to win this leg?" Oh, no, not interested. No, okay. So that was a theme that ran through the whole way. But we actually didn't argue the whole way around. And I know even some women don't believe that. I mean, we had heated debates about which sails were up, but, you know, I didn't have 11, you know, sheep. I had 11 feisty, strong women with very strong ideas about, you know, which sails were up. So, but nothing personal, no. And we're still friends today, and we WhatsApp each other, I would say 2 or 3 times a week.
I mean, that experience must be more than bonding. So it's, you know,
cementing for life, I think. What of that journey, like what were the best and worst times looking back on it now?
The best moment was crossing the finishing line first into Australia. That was
so satisfying.
Oh, I can place myself right back there in a second. Satisfying, exactly. You know, and it's really hard actually to think back all those years, even for me, and remember how impossible people thought it was. I mean, Jaws literally hit the deck. People were like, they've done what? I mean, they were amazed that we'd made it in one piece through the Southern Ocean. I mean, people were absolutely expecting us to die, and you know, not reach Australia. So for them to win that leg and to win it by 38 hours, that was obviously the greatest moments in my life is the birth of my daughter. I should obviously say that. And the worst, I think, was I really mucked up on the 1, 2, 3, 4th leg. And I lost our first position. We were leading by 18 hours at the halfway point of the race. And I really screwed up on the navigation. And that's still something that I go, God, if only I could just go back and just change that one bit. So that was the worst bit for me.
I was expecting you to say, I thought you might have a moment of fear in that journey, but I think you've kind of learned to deal with all the scary stuff that the ocean throws on you.
We did,
moments.
yeah. No, we thought we were going to sink. So we got around Cape Horn pretty much in one piece with the weather not too bad. Of course, we all lie. All sailors lie when we say we sail around Cape Horn. You know, the waves were 50 foot high. The winds were 80 knots. It was actually quite calm the day we went round. But as we came up the beginning of the North Atlantic, just going past the Falkland Islands, we got hit by this low pressure, and we were hammering straight into the wind. Worst position for a boat, and you can do some serious damage. And we did. And so we started taking on water. We couldn't work out where the water was coming from. I mean, to the point where I quietly said to Sal, big Sal from Glasgow, you know, who was the safety officer, I said, Sal, why don't you just quietly, nonchalantly unclip the clips on the lockers? For we kept life rafts in lockers in those days. I mean, they would have sunk by the time we'd got them out. Now they're on deck and they're released with water pressure. Yeah, we did quietly work out how quickly we could get the life rafts off the boat. An RAF Hercules came out from the Falklands and flew over us just to make sure where we were in case they needed to rescue us. We didn't send out a Mayday in the end, but we were centimetre close to doing so. And I wasn't frightened for me. I was frightened for the fact that I have 11 people's lives in my hands, and being responsible for that weight that's quite something when it happens.
And after that, I mean, it must sort of scary incident when you almost putting out a Mayday call. Is that when you came into the next port and you decided, well, we're going to distract everyone from that little disaster and we're going to come in looking like rock stars?
With the swimsuits.
Swimsuit. Yeah, I mean, it was totally calculated, really. I mean, it wasn't just to distract. In a way, we wanted to kind of play the press at their own game. We'd won 2 legs. We'd proved that we weren't going to die. But I think we wanted to say something, and I can't eloquently put into, you know, what exactly it was we wanted to say. But we felt strong and invincible and very female. And we were very clear about that the whole way around. We weren't male clones. We weren't small men. We were very much women, to the point where at all the stopovers when we came in, we would have our hair washed. And Mickey was a great braider. Just braid everyone's hairs. We looked as if we just sailed around the corner. You know, all the men used to get in with beards and the boat stinking to high heaven. And, you know, we'd get in with our little white ankle socks and our pink shorts. And that was very deliberate.
Women embracing being women, not pretending to be or trying to look like a grubby man, or just be, you
Yes.
know, you have your own path. I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
We thought we wanted to show other girls that you can be a sailor, you can do all this stuff and still be a girly girl. The girls used to laugh at me because I always used to have my handbag in the nav station. They'd be like, seriously, can you not leave that behind? No, I don't get anywhere without my handbag. Are you mad? When we had the premiere of the film, it was a private premiere just for us, and we were the first people to see it, all our family and friends. And we all had our kids there. And it was the first time we'd had a big reunion for 27 years. So it was very special. Yeah.
Amazing.
And yeah, all of our daughters meeting each other. That was really cool. And we did have a conversation about, what did you think about the swimsuits? And, you know, one of the daughters went, we thought it was absolutely fantastic. You looked amazing.
I agree. I think it's fantastic. And it's also a bit of fun. Stuff it. You know, you look fabulous. You're sportswomen. You show them. That's what I think.
Super tanned.
Oh yeah, we look good.
I mean, the film is absolutely amazing. I just want you to talk me through that end bit. I was completely in tears just because of the lack of comms and everything. You had no idea that you built up all this support, and then that one little dinghy and you're thinking, oh, hi, you know, nice to see you, and then more and more. I mean, you must have just been so overwhelmed and just realized that this is the moment that you have changed the world, frankly. What did it feel like?
Well, you see, Howard lied to us. He called us on the radio and he said, everyone's gone home. I'm so sorry, just taking too long. Yeah. And we didn't know it was a bank holiday Monday. It's just a Monday to us. And he knew. And they said, yeah, Monday, everyone's left, gone. We're like, oh, okay. Oh, that's fine. You know, we don't mind. As you say, you know, so coming up to the Needles, the first boat, and then the next boat, and then another boat, and they're turning around and going with us. And we're like, okay, I get goosebumpy now thinking about it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I think so. They reckon there were 500 boats on the water. 50,000 people on the dock in Southampton. It was, as Bob Fisher says in the film, it was the best finish of any boat in any race, and it really was. It was just phenomenal. And I think that, I was still annoyed we hadn't won. We'd come second. I'd lost our first place. That's never left me. But as a consolation prize, you know, to have all these people come in, and we saw there would be girls in dinghies, you know, sort of looking up and waving, and so that was huge for us to. We didn't quite know at the time what we'd done. It wasn't until the film came out that we went, oh, okay. And with Maiden now, you know, with girls joining Maiden saying, I started sailing because of Maiden. I'm like, wow, you know. But we did get an inkling of, okay, maybe we've taken a chink out of this wall, you know, that we're trying to get through. And it was, it was just, I can remember every moment of that day, and I will do for the rest of my life.
It's so inspiring, Tracy. You know, we as a slightly younger generation should be saying thank you, because you did take a chink out of that wall. And I suppose you kind of went from being Tracy, the skipper, the navigator, to winning all those amazing awards, getting an MBE. And I suppose now you became a sort of public figure. How did you cope with all that pressure? Because in a way, it changed your life. And, you know, unfortunately, these changes happen very, very quickly, and you're kind of suddenly in a completely new world. So can you talk about those pressures of it?
Well, I didn't handle it well. That's the short answer. You know, and in those days, we didn't talk about the mental health of sports people. Now that's one of the things that I'm very impressed with, the bravery of sports people that come forward and talk about it. But you just didn't then, especially as a woman. asking for help was a big no, 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 no. Men will think we're weak and we can't do this. And also there was no guidance. I mean, no one, we were really the first. I mean, I know everyone talks about the Spice Girls, but you know, when they show footage of the 90s, the big things of, you know, the 90s, we are always missed out. And I've never really figured out why, because we really were the first kind of instant fame, but it was shocking. I didn't handle it well. Everyone else went off to do the races that they were going to do next. They all had great jobs to go to, which was fantastic. And I thought, well, I'll stay and write the book and do the interviews and kind of try and keep the whole thing alive. That was a huge mistake. Yeah, so no guidance, no agent.
You're
Say
managing
yes to
all that
everything.
yourself.
Yeah, because I thought, well, people expect this. You know, I must. It's like a duty. I must do my duty to women and Maiden and everything else. And in the end, I fell over and I had a complete nervous breakdown. My friends from Wales drove up 4 hours from Wales one night and literally kidnapped me and, you know, packed me up and put me in the car and took me back down to Wales. I was getting divorced at the time, which of course the press absolutely loved because, you know, oh, here's the high and oh, here's the low. So even though it was a very amicable divorce and we, you know, sold the house and split the proceeds, that's not what anyone wanted to hear. For 2 years, I completely disappeared. No one knew where I was. I was a total recluse living down in Wales with my horses. Howard Gibbons called me up one day and he said, you've been invited to the Yachtsman of the Year lunch. Now they have a lunch. I mean, at the time when I won it, they just used to throw it at you and go, there you go. And now they've got, you know, sort of big lunch and dinner and everything else. And he said, come with me. And I went, oh, I don't know. He went, yeah, no. Come on, come and see your friends. Everyone thinks you're dead. So come. So I went to this award ceremony and the winners were Robin Knox-Johnson and Peter Blake on this huge multi-hull doing the Jules Verne Trophy non-stop around the world. And they had this footage and I just looked at it and I went, oh, I want to do that. And Howard was like, oh God, what have I done?
Oh, here she goes.
That's how I got back into it. But I recovered and recharged. And
I mean, you said you got back into sailing, Tracy. Can you tell us a little bit about kind of all the next races that you did? Some of them are pretty impressive. I know they're not as famous as the Maiden one, but I just think, yeah, great to fill others in terms of all the record breaking.
Yeah, so we decided to do the first all-female crew to attempt the non-stop round the world record, the Jules Verne Trophy, held by a Frenchman at the time. We bought Robin Knox-Johnson and Peter Blake's big catamaran and had a lot of fun on that boat. I mean, nearly killed ourselves numerous times, but we broke 7 world records. We broke the fastest record in the world at one point, which was the channel record. And we held on to that for a number of years. And in fact, we were the ones to break it. We did that. We attempted the around the world non-stop. We lost our mast in the Southern Ocean, unfortunately. It still keeps me awake at night, and that was in 1998 or whenever it was. So we didn't break the world record, broke loads of the records, some still stand. Then I decided to do, then I became pregnant with my daughter, and within a nanosecond of holding her in my arms, knew that I would never risk my life again. It was like there's just this instant realization. I went from going, oh, it'll be fine. I'll leave her with someone and I'll carry on with my racing. And all my friends used to go, yeah, of course you will. Yeah. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, no, I won't, apparently. But I didn't want to leave sailing. So I became a manager. We then did Maiden 2, which was the biggest, fastest catamaran in the world. We bought that from Grant Dalton. And we had the world's first mixed sex professional racing team ever. And this is in 2000. This is only 25 years ago.
That's incredible.
We broke more world records. We had a female skipper and a male skipper, the amazing Brian Thompson and Helena Darvelid. 6 girls, 6 guys. Never been done before. We broke more world records in a 2-year period than any other team ever had. Because, of course, it's not rocket science. You get the best men and the best women. Duh. You've got the best team. And that's what Maiden was all about. That's what all these all-female crews were about. Yeah. Getting women into the big boat sailing, the big money, sailing on the big projects. I mean, I love all-female crews, but that wasn't the ultimate aim and goal. But do you know how many people have done it since 2000?
Tell me.
0.
No.
Oh, no.
0.
Wow.
I know. it was a blip, and then we all went back to, you know, women not being able to get on the big money boats and everything else. So there's a long way to go in sailing. You know, it's all still there, the sexism and the misogyny. But, you know, I think what we did do was we gave women the belief that they could do it. And, you know, there are some amazing women sailors out there now, breaking record, winning races. So, yeah.
Oh, Tracy, God, I'm aware that we haven't got that much time. I really want to talk about so many things, especially the Maiden Factor and what's happening with that. Can you just talk us through a little bit about the beginnings and the aims and the amazing stuff?
So we rescued Maiden in 2017. I'd sold her at the end of the race. We rescued her. King Hussein's daughter, Princess Haya, funded us to rescue her and bring her back to the UK. We restored her. And in 2018, she was relaunched by then Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall and Princess Haya. And then we started a 3-year, 90,000 mile world tour, 3 times around the world, 3 years, 90,000 miles. Princess Haya's idea was to raise money for girls' education. So we did that. We raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for girls' education. We fund girls' educational programs with a focus on STEM subjects all over the world. We also took on girls in apprenticeship programs. So we had a bursary-ship and an apprenticeship on Maiden. We had 122 girls through the apprenticeship program. And Heather Thomas, who was one of the girls that we had on the world tour, has last year skippered Maiden with another all-female crew, younger and obviously less creaky than us. And Maiden became the first, with Heather Thomas, the first all-female crew to ever win an around-the-world race. So that topped and tailed Maiden's career very nicely.
What are you up to? So now are you...
I live, you know, through the achievements of the girls we have on Maiden. Maiden's taking a bit of rest at the moment. We're trying to decide what to do with her next. We've had some very interesting girls sailing programs that would like to take her. So we're looking at those. I've reached a point now where my focus really is girls' education and women's rights. You know, women's rights are being methodically stripped away from us as we speak at the moment. And for me, girls' education, we have spent the last year focusing on underground schools in Afghanistan. So that for me is yeah, we really are going backwards, aren't we? It's just shocking. That's my big focus at the moment.
Looking at all the stats and things, I think you said there are 130 million girls that are not entitled to an education. Obviously, Afghanistan is one element and it's horrific what's going on there. But maybe you could talk also about, just for the last 5 minutes, about the other work you're doing in other places and how you're helping educate all these fabulous young women.
We can go to my website, themaidenfactor.org, and see the work that we do there. You can donate, help us, and look at the charities. We partner with charities who tackle... There are so many issues that stop girls having an education. It's not necessarily religion or culture or even where you're born. It's the situation a girl is born into. So, for instance, we partner with Just a Drop, an incredible charity that brings water to villages. Now, these water systems are often managed by women because they understand how important it is to manage the water so that girls, because it's girls that go and get the water, not the boys. These are women down in the dirt, that they are there. They understand the problems and they've all come up with ingenious solutions to get girls into education. There's a village we sponsor in India where parents go around and educate other parents about why their daughters should be educated. The hard-nosed facts are, if you educate your daughter, she's worth more to you than selling her for marriage. So, you know, and Boris Johnson, for all his faults, when he launched the Commonwealth, I think it was, I was there, it was 5 or 6 years ago, heads of the Commonwealth, the money that Britain was putting into girls' education, it's a very hard-nosed fact. Your country, your village, your society, the socioeconomic status of these, you know, countries, communities are better if you educate girls. You can't have a fully functioning society unless you educate 51% of the population. And this is why Afghanistan is such a travesty. And I don't know how this is going to end up, because they won't let girls be educated to be midwives, and they won't let men attend the births of women. So now there's deaths. We fund a emergency mental health care organization in Afghanistan because girls are now starting to commit suicide. And it's just, sorry, it's absolutely shocking. But we also fund programs in developing countries, in developed countries. So America and the UK have the biggest drop off for 15-year-olds. Hello, out of school. And this is one way I really feel that I can give back. You know, I threw away an education. I threw away an education someone handed me on a silver plate. I feel bad every day for that. But in America and the UK, girls leave school at 15. We know that the really crucial years are between 15 and 18. You know, that's the job finding period. That's the bit, you know, where that gives them the part of their education that they can then become, you know, financially autonomous. And financial autonomy of all women everywhere is the end product.
Yeah, and we just need them more than ever. We just need men, women, everyone to get together and really just try and do something about the state of everything at the moment. Just listening to some other interviews you've done about how you've noticed the change, you know, when you were doing your sailing in 40 years apart, you know, the plastic, the nets, the rig, you know, if we can just get a handle on it. It's just shameful that we're still doing this.
It is bloody shameful. I mean, for goodness sake, there's one planet. That's it. You know, and what I really don't understand, I'm sorry, this maybe is a male thing, all these wealthy, you know, these billionaires all building rockets to go to the moon. Stop it.
We don't need to go to the moon.
Don't make me come down there. So, you know, polluting the environment by building the rockets. But imagine if all of those people got together and pooled their wealth and said, let's concentrate on saving the planet. Couple of years, the job would be done. They could get rid of poverty, saving the planet, and I don't understand why. And then I look at Melinda Gates and I look at Mackenzie Brooke, all these amazing women, all these, you know, sort of billionaire women who are all, you know, girls' education, saving the planet. So I'm sorry, I am a little bit sexist there. So, you know, stop building phallic rockets and start saving the planet.
Oh gosh, Tracy, you are amazing. And I can't believe you ever feel bad about anything. It's actually really humbling hearing you say that. And it's just shocking. You've just absolutely such an amazing person. If you were looking back at your younger, rebellious Tracy, I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say to her. What would you say to young Tracy, given what you know now?
Well, I can't swear on your podcast, obviously, but I'd probably give the answer that Helen Mirren gave. If you remember what that was, I would say F off more often, and no. I would say no more often. And there was there's a whole time in my life where I was finding my feet, and, you know, I may come across as feisty now, but I'm 63. You know, I've run out of whatever's to give, and that's the joy of getting older. You are unfiltered, whereas actually, I know this is hard to believe, but I was quite filtered when I was younger, and I would say, don't, just say it.
I love that. I love that. And we ask everyone on our podcast this last question. So if you could have a cocktail, and I don't know whether you drink or not, or a mocktail with one great woman, who would it be?
I'm a sailor. Of course I drink. Well, it would have to be J.K. Rowling, because I think this woman is a legend. She's a warrior queen, and what she's doing for women's rights, I think she deserves a sainthood. You know, Lumos, or, you know, the funding the Women's Rape Crisis Centre, all the amazing things that she does she's extraordinary. And I think we would drink Dark and Stormies, because that would be very appropriate.
I love it. I love a dark and stormy too. Delicious.
Me too. Not many things I don't like drinking, but thank you so much, Tracy. It's been amazing.
It's been fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.